Tanse, I'm Chris Nashkate. Welcome to APTN National News Daytime on this Monday. Police in Quebec are reporting that two individuals in the Atikamekw community of Manawan in southwestern Quebec have died. Late Sunday afternoon, police officers from Manowan were called to a home where two bodies were found. Investigators from the Sûreté du Québec were called to the scene to assist in the investigation. The SQ has confirmed that the victims are a 44-year-old man and a 39-year-old woman, and that the incident is currently being treated as a domestic violence incident. The Atikamekw Council of Manawan said in a statement that a major incident occurred in a community residence and that the council will remain fully cooperative. They also expressed their solidarity with the individuals' families and loved ones affected by the incident. Two people have been arrested in connection to a 2021 shooting of a man in Eskasoni, Mi'kmaq Nation in Nova Scotia. Here's an update. On February 28, 2021, at around 10:25 p.m., RCMP were called to a home in Eskasoni, Mi'kmaq Nation on Mountain View Drive after there was a report of a man who had been shot through a window. The 53-year-old male victim, who was identified as Leonard Denny, the CEO of Crane Cove Seafoods in Eskasoni, was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, and the suspects later got away. Through their investigation, the Northeast Nova RCMP Major Crimes Unit reviewed hundreds of video surveillance footage and other digital files that were seized. And last Tuesday, two people, one from Eskasoni and one from Chapel Island, were both safely arrested by RCMP. 35-year-old Ashton Bernard has been charged with attempted murder and other weapons-related charges. 29-year-old Edwin Paul has also been charged with accessory after the fact. Both were released on conditions and will make their first court appearance on March 3rd. Nova Scotia RCMP said it used resources from forensics and criminal analysis in its investigation. RCMP alleged that the incident was a targeted attack and not done at random. The allegations have yet to be proven in court. There has been increasing pressure from inside the New Brunswick legislature for a full-scale investigation into the most recent death of an Indigenous person involving police. Green Party leader David Kuhn is calling for RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhim to launch an investigation into how police respond to mental health and domestic dispute calls involving Indigenous people.
He's got a responsibility to really look at this, engage in the Indigenous community, and look at the training of RCMP officers.
On Sunday, January 18th, Bronson Paul was shot and killed by police at a house in Nagutkuk First Nation. New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt has said her government would do its part for an investigation. Meanwhile, PC leader Glenn Savoy released a statement expressing sympathy for the family, saying, "We must remain respectful as this process unfolds." The Nova Scotia-based Serious Incident Response Team is leading that investigation. Chiefs from across the Atlantic and Gaspé regions held an emergency meeting recently to address the two recent RCMP shooting deaths on the East Coast. They include 40-year-old Bronson Paul from the Nagutkuk in New Brunswick and 37-year-old Daryl Augustine from Indian Brook, Nova Scotia. That incident started in Sabeganegati. Both incidents happened in less than a week earlier this month. The chiefs say they are deeply concerned about the RCMP shooting deaths of two Mi'kmaq men, including how the number of First Nations people dying from RCMP involvement over the years keeps rising. Both RCMP shooting deaths are currently being investigated by the Serious Incident Response Team, or CIRT. Chiefs say they are also concerned with the lack of Indigenous representation within CIRT. They're calling for federal leaders, the RCMP, and provincial ministers to meet with them as soon as possible to prevent any future deaths. Through CIRT's investigation, they say Paul allegedly advanced towards officers before he was shot and killed, an allegation Paul's family strongly disputes. CIRT also says that the RCMP initially used non-lethal measures before Augustine was shot and killed by the RCMP. Augustine's family questioned why an RCMP canine unit was used against him while Augustine was pinned inside his vehicle. In a statement, Millbrook First Nation Chief Bob Glode added, Our chiefs are deeply concerned about these incidents and the increasing number of deaths of First Nation members involving the RCMP. There is an urgent need to openly discuss these concerns and to identify concrete actions and solutions. CERT must find ways and strategies to ensure Indigenous voices and perspectives are meaningfully included in this important work. At present, there is no Indigenous or First Nation participation in this process. More than 24 people from the Kashechewan First Nation in Northern Ontario have tested positive for Cryptosporidium, a parasite that causes gastrointestinal illnesses. More than 30 people have tested positive for the parasite, which causes stomach pain, dehydration, and nausea. 2 other residents also tested positive for both Cryptosporidium and Dientamoeba fragilis, another parasite that causes diarrhea and fatigue, while a 3rd person only has Dientamoeba. The cause of the infection is still under investigation. However, both parasites have been linked to contaminated water. A do not consume water advisory remains in place for Kashechewan, and repairs are still underway for the First Nations water treatment plant. Kashechewan declared a state of emergency on January 4th after infrastructure damage created a public health and safety issue when raw sewage seeped into the First Nations water supply. Hundreds remain evacuated in the Ontario cities of Timmins, Kapuskasing, Kingston, Cochrane, and Niagara Falls. We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how to continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. The Canadian military is finally wrapping up its work in the Pimicikamak Cree Nation. That story after the break. Welcome back. The Canadian military's mission to disaster-stricken Pimicikamak is over. The federal government announced the specialized team of engineers and specialists have completed their work and they are leaving the community. Federal officials say the military workers looked over key community infrastructure and have submitted their assessments and recommendations to Chief David Munias. While the Canadian Armed Forces personnel were on the ground, Indigenous Services Canada first tracked its review and funding of recovery projects. Ottawa says it will provide funding to support all eligible response and recovery costs, including repairs to community infrastructure and homes. Officials plan to meet with leaders from Pimicikamak Cree Nation along with the province to review progress and discuss the next steps. A First Nation in northern Manitoba is on a mission to inform the public that lake sturgeon are at a great risk of becoming extinct. The campaign called Save the Namao is also looking to hold Manitoba Hydro to task for its involvement. With more, here's APTN's TR Wheatley.
Stuck with a number at the tail end of the sturgeon.
With less than 2,100 lake sturgeon tagged on the lower Churchill River in northern Manitoba, knowledge keeper Robert Spence says they are at risk of becoming extinct within the next decade or two. Spence blames the Churchill River diversion for killing the sturgeon. The CDR is a massive hydroelectric generating station built in 1976.
About 1.4 million square kilometers of watersheds that flows past our community. But the Churchill River gets less than 1%.
That community is the Tk'taskoyak Cree Nation. Chief Doreen Spence says they've had enough.
Manitoba Hydro always manipulating the water level flows and everything. And basically they're manipulating our lives too.
In 2018, Tk'taskoyak commissioned environmental consultants to study the river over numerous years, producing 3 reports in late 2025. The first one found the sturgeon only occupy 18 kilometers of the 450-kilometer river. The second tracked their movements, while the third produced the impacts of the Churchill River diversion. Taylor Galvin is an Indigenous sciences scholar who's helping TCN in their fight to hold Manitoba Hydro accountable. In order to do that, she's helping TCN start a campaign geared at educating the public.
Animals, landscapes, burial sites, all of these things. Like, this is the biggest issue in Manitoba right now, is that there's so much lack of education on how Manitoba Hydro impacts First Nations people.
The campaign called Save the Namao will see signs across the province on billboards, buses, public spaces leading up to September when the diversion license expires. Tk'taskoyak's goal, get the public on board to pressure Manitoba Hydro to work with them on future negotiations, to listen to the people living on the land and to save the sturgeon.
Give us more water. Release more water down the lower Churchill River system.
Spence says the water release needs to be done in spring and fall gradually to align with the river's natural flow. And if Manitoba Hydro doesn't comply, Tk'taskoyak's chief is prepared to turn this into a legal battle.
We're not going to just sit back idle and wait. Like, if we have to go to court, then we will.
Meanwhile, Manitoba Hydro says they are reviewing the reports and they look forward to ongoing discussions with Tk'taskoyak. A spokesperson says since 2018, Manitoba Hydro has provided the community with $1.5 million to help with the research, adding that diversion has always been compliant with its license. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Greenlanders' lives carry on, and despite Donald Trump's retreat on taking the territory by force, his past rhetoric has not been forgotten and still causes concern. APTN video journalist Angel Moore brings us the latest there.
Greenlanders have returned to some normalcy as U.S. President Donald Trump has retreated his threat to annex the territory using military force. This market that sells fresh fish and seals was business as usual. However, there is still a large media and political presence. Earlier, media surrounded the house of Greenland's Prime Minister. Inside, Jan Fredrik Nielsen hosted Denmark's Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen. After their meeting, they visited a fish market. But over at the United States consulate, people continue to gather. Aviak Brunt is one of them. She's been there every day this week. Brunt waves the Greenlandic flag in protest.
Showing the world that he will treat Indigenous people like a thing. We are people and we're not for sale and not part of us are for sale, not anything like that.
Sarah Olsey is the international chair of the Inuit Circumpolar Council. She weighed in on recent events.
In terms of not wanting to be colonized once again. We've already been colonized, and we are already working very hard to establish a more equal partnership with the state that colonized the people of this land.
Greenlanders I spoke to said they will always protect their sovereignty. I will have more stories to come, including a fisher who is concerned about climate change and how it will impact hunting and fishing. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Nuuk, Greenland.
We now want to give you the results of last week's web poll questions. Our first question we asked, are you concerned about Trump's stance on Greenland? 77% said very concerned, 11% were either somewhat concerned or not concerned at all, and 1% were unsure. Our second question was, how often do you fact-check claims on social media? The majority of 54% answered all the time, 34% admitted they do it sometimes, 9% said rarely, and 3% said never. And our last question, do you get screened for cancer? 52% had voted yes, and the rest at 48% said no. Thanks for taking the time to cast your votes. Go to our website at aptnnews.ca to see this week's new web poll questions. Our next guest on the show is a former host of E-Talk and is from the Frog Lake First Nation in Alberta. That interview right after the break. Big wedge for staying with us. St. John's -9, Charlottetown -8, -19 in Cartwright, the Grand River -23, sunny in Quebec City at -12, St. Jovite -14, flurries in Toronto at -10, Peterborough -14, -15 in Sudbury, Thunder Bay -21, Thompson -21, Churchill -18, -16 in Winnipeg, Dauphin -16, minus 15 in Yorkton, minus 18 in Saskatoon. La Ronge, minus 18, Buffalo Narrows, minus 22. Cloudy in Grand Prairie at minus 4, Fort McMurray, minus 12. 4 in Calgary, Red Deer, minus 2. 10 in Vancouver, Kamloops, minus 1. Minus 12 in Fort Nelson, Dease Lake, minus 3 and cloudy there. Old Crow, minus 30, Mayo, minus 12. Minus 17 in Fort Simpson, clear skies in Watee at minus 23. Tuktoyaktuk, minus 20, Colville Lake, minus 19. Minus 16 in Chesterfield, Whale Cove, minus 18. And Arctic Bay, minus 16, Aglulik, minus 19 and sunny. Our next guest is a First Nation entertainment journalist from the Treaty 6 territory in Alberta.
If you stay deadly, you ain't gotta get deadly.
Oh.
Is that it? I know, that's a riff on RuPaul. I'm trying.
Yeah, but it works for us because everything's deadly.
I know, right?
We want to know more.
Michaela Montana is an award-winning television host, journalist, model, and actress from the Frog Lake First Nation in Alberta. In 2023, she made history as the first Indigenous woman to host Canada's #1 entertainment news show, E-Talk, interviewing Hollywood stars from across North America. She also received her very first Canadian Screen Award for a special she helped co-produce and host on Truth and Reconciliation Day. You may also recognize her as the former co-host of APTN's The Other Side, and she has modeled for big companies like Nordstrom Canada. Michaela is now moving behind the camera to produce her new all-women-led web series called Behind the Seams with Michaela Montana. It will explore the philosophies and design ethics of fashion designers with diverse Indigenous backgrounds from around the world through an 8-episode documentary. Last Tuesday, the series aired 2 back-to-back episodes on YouTube with interviews with designers Jennifer Younger and Dal Rumik. Our TR Wheatley recently spoke with Michaela Montana. Here's that interview.
Michaela Montana, thank you for speaking with us. Can you tell us what viewers can expect with this new show you host and produce on YouTube called Behind the Seams and why it's so important?
Absolutely. Behind the Seams with Michaela Montana is an 8-part web series that will premiere a new episode every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it provides an inside look at the design ethics and philosophies of 8 different Indigenous designers from around the world. And that means that viewers will not only learn about fashion, they will learn about the many different Indigenous cultures that exist in North America and around the world. There is something to learn from every episode, whether you're affluent in art, fashion, design, whether you're Indigenous, non-Indigenous, a student. There's just a lot to take from the series, and viewers will gain a deeper understanding of the significances and the hidden meanings behind the designs from all the work of these designers, whether it's the meanings behind the beadwork, the applique, the designs, the patterns, the materials being used. It's just a really intimate, personal, candid, authentic, fun, and educational series that is really meant for everyone.
You sound so passionate. It's exciting. Michaela, you've also said that for far too long, Indigenous designs and designers have been exploited and Indigenous voices are undervalued in this industry. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I started my journey in fashion, in the fashion industry when I was 14 years old as a model. And I've modeled in many major mainstream fashion weeks, and I never saw anyone that looked like me, especially when it came to Indigenous designers. I would see Indigenous designs, but they would be by non-Indigenous people. As many people know, for decades, Indigenous designs, patterns, materials have been appropriated, misappropriated, exploited, and Indigenous designs haven't been overlooked. But Indigenous designers, people, and communities have been overlooked. And Behind the Seams is an opportunity for these Indigenous designers, Indigenous people to reclaim their voices, their traditions, their histories, their identities. And it's a platform for Indigenous designers to be recognized, celebrated, and represented authentically.
I guess, you made history 3 years ago as the first Indigenous host of E-Talk. What was that whole experience like for you? And I guess the other part to it is, who was your favorite star you got to do an interview with?
Ooh, that's a hard one. It was obviously a dream come true, and it was a goal that I had set out for myself and did everything in my power to try to achieve. And I am just so grateful for the experience. I learned so much in a short amount of time. And it gave me this platform to sort of branch out on my own, to do my own producing and hosting. One of my favorite celebrities that I got to interview was Jennifer Lopez. She was on my bucket list, and I interviewed her for her movie Atlas. I completely blacked out during that interview because I was so nervous, and I came out and I was like, I don't know what I just said, but it was a really awesome interview, and I was able to gift her some beaded hoop earrings.
Oh, that's a nice gift to give her for sure. But I just have to say, that we all miss seeing you on E-Talk, but are you able to tell us what's next for your career?
Yes, so I'm still a guest correspondent for E-Talk. I'm also a mother of two, so I've taken a little bit of downtime as my baby boy is only 8 months old. So I do plan to, start pitching and working for E-Talk a little more in the future, but mainly my goal is to start producing and hosting my own content, and Behind the Scenes is that step towards being able to do that full time.
Yes, another 2 beautiful Cree babies to add to the world. I guess finally,
Yes.
Michaela, what is your message to other young First Nations women and girls out there who look up to you and have seen your success and say, hey, I want to do that too?
Yeah. My advice would be is if you have an idea, a dream, a vision, a goal, to just do everything in your power to work towards it. Do all the things that align with achieving it. Do all the things that get you one step closer to achieving it. And do not be afraid to ask for help along the way. That was the biggest thing for me. I think one of the biggest holdbacks is you can't do it all on your own. And there are people out there that are willing to help and they want to see you succeed, but you will never find them if you don't ask for help.
Manifestation, that's definitely great advice. That's Michaela Montana, director and host of the new documentary series on YouTube called Behind the Seams with Michaela Montana. Michaela, thanks so much for your time, and please come back on our show again.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you, TR and Michaela, and that's your daytime newscast for this Monday. We're back again in a few hours with an all-new evening newscast. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again next day.